To be honest with you, this has been a really good tournament, officiated wise, player wise, coaching wise. Even though coach, they're kind of making these mistakes
Hey, how
at the
about
end of the game.
attacking a zone? Don't get me started on attacking a zone. It's like you've never
Exactly.
seen a zone before. Sorry about see that got me
See,
going. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and on today's Wind Up Wednesday edition, we will continue our month-long celebration of the men's basketball tournament. Don't you worry, NBA fans. Here's the headline. Cleveland and Boston are still tops in the East, and Oklahoma City has a double-digit lead in the West. Everything else we'll catch up with in a couple of weeks. So in segment one, best, worst, and most exciting things we saw in the tournament. Segment two, NIL's effect on schools. We'll talk about a couple of schools in particular. And in segment three, we will preview San Antonio and see if our Final Four is still intact. But first, best thing we saw all tournament. I will start. I've got Captain for Life, Will Cotton, here with me. Will, best thing that I saw the entire first, second round of the tournament was coaching still matters. You still have to be able to bring a message, teach all year, and then when we get in the biggest moments, your players still have to execute. So you can have all the talent in the world you want, but if they can't run it, then you can't win a championship. So I have been so excited that as we look at the Sweet 16 and move to the Elite Eight, you see a lot of coaches that are coaches who are still coaching. I love that. For you, what's the best thing you've seen first and second round of the tournament?
oh man, it's got to be the quality of basketball. I mean, we are getting some, and we complain about the NBA quality all the time. And man, I would just have to say, there's just such much more refinement of the game with college. You see more that you actually like: passing, cutting, pin down, swing the ball, the different type of defenses, getting hyped, slapping the floor. And right now they're playing excellent basketball right now. It's to a point where it's like, and then you watch the NBA and you're like, this, I can't even watch this because nobody's doing anything. So right now, good. I mean, I think unexpectedly, NIL kind of happened that. Now guys are older, they go to different teams, they're staying at college a little longer, and sometimes maybe you're like a 19 or 20-year-old like phenom and you come in there and all of a sudden it changes and you need a couple extra years. So then you're like 22, 23, then you're in college, so the quality is still going up. So just the quality was a lot better. I love the tournament so far. It's been really good.
All right. So for me, the worst thing is the lack of understanding from coaches and teams about how to play guys with fouls. One of the things that I thought I did a halfway decent job of, my players tell me if not, was we practice intentionally time and score situations when guys had multiple fouls. And please stop telling me about the fifth foul. That was a bad call on the fifth foul. No, no, no. Stupid reach in during the early part of the game, that's the dumb foul. The block you took when you had no positioning, that's the worst foul. So one of the things we did was we practiced playing with three fouls in the first half. It was intentional because why am I going to hurt my team? I'm just going to say you've got three. I might take you out for a second or two just to, reset you so you're not thinking about it. But you make adjustments, you switch your defense up, but you don't park them for like 10 minutes in the first half. And then when guys get their fourth in the second half, yeah, you modify, you adjust, but 5 minutes in and it's winning time. I don't understand why, coaches and teams are hurting themselves, Will, by not playing their players with fouls. It's like you didn't practice it. So that's been bugging me when guys pick up fouls. They're like, foul trouble, you got to sit them. No, you don't have to sit them. You have to modify and adjust. And if you've never practiced it, that's on you. What's the worst thing you've seen? Because you know, Coach will get on a rant about coaching.
Not too much. Not to be honest with you, this has been a really good tournament, officiated wise, player wise, coaching wise. Even though coach, they're kind of making these mistakes at
Hey,
the end of
how
at the end
about
of the game.
attacking a zone? Don't get me started on attacking a zone. It's like you've never
Exactly.
seen a zone before. Sorry about see that got me
See?
going with
Uh,
coaching.
exactly. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything that there's nothing worse. I mean, only thing worse, I guess, is St. John's got knocked out of the tournament, and I'm biased because I was rooting for St. John's. But everything else has been excellent. I kind of think I knew who's going to win, but you have a lot of good teams left, so we'll see what
Yeah, a
happens.
lot of good teams left. Not like last year. And yeah, selfishly, I'm looking for some blue bloods because NC State, Purdue, and Alabama and UConn, that's not a Final Four. That's for fun-filled frolic. I need some blue bloods that know how to do stuff. So in terms of the most exciting thing, managers are in the news. And anyone who's played for me knows how I feel about my manager. So shout out to Jamie, Doc, and Lindsay from Paint Branch, along with Aaron and the rest of the crew. Shout out to Ryan Steinberg. Best thing I ever have in my life is knowing Ryan Steinberg is my manager because that's how we met. And my Springbrook managers, Ajua, Nancy, Jason, Jay Nuss, go ahead. And at Hood College, shout out to Clyde. I love managers. And the fact that a manager is getting an NIL deal, one is probably troubling. I should probably be bothered by this. But go ahead and get that money, man. Enjoy yourself. So that's been the most exciting thing to be able to talk about managers and managers getting, pub. Heck, I still owe Jamie $1. Well, what's the most exciting thing you've seen in the tournament on the opening weekend?
As sometimes, even though these guys can make their money, these guys are excited, man. These kids are showing emotion. These kids are screaming, slapping the floor, all kinds of stuff, man. I love it. I love the emotion. I love the passion. Who says you can't have that balance with money and passion? And so, it's just
those are real
passion.
tears.
Yeah,
Even though I
it
got
is.
500,000 this year.
I will say there's a lot less crying. There's a lot less crying.
No, I got hold on one second. But while I got you here, I don't even know the kid, but I was looking at social media, and the team lost at like 8 o'clock, and the kid was in the transfer portal like 8:05. I'm
Yeah,
like, what? You
cash
doing
check. Did it hit the account? It hit the account. All
it?
right, we out of here.
You doing it? You couldn't even wait till you got back to the hotel. I ain't
No, it
mad
was
at
already.
you, but I don't know if you
It
heard
was.
that story. I don't even know if you heard it.
That's funny. He was right there to hit send as soon as it
It
did
said
send.
it was like 8 o'clock. The game ended 8:05. First of all, I'd like to thank God for the opportunity. What?
Yeah,
God.
and move on, man, and move
Uh,
on. But yeah,
uh,
for the most part they've been loving it, man. I mean, the faces that you see when you lose and you expect to lose, it's like, so they really are. It's really hitting them. So I really like, and that's what I've been liking the term most exciting. Saw
okay.
the emotion and the passion.
All right. So, fans, when we get back in segment 2, we're going to talk about NIL's impact on the coaching cycle. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast. Hi, everyone. Dr. Keith Adams here. And for over 30 years, I've dedicated my life to helping student athletes succeed, not just on the fields and the courts, but in the classroom and beyond. And that's why I founded the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project understands that finding the balance between academics and athletics is crucial for long-term success. That's why the CKA Save Project offers a range of programs, including personalized consulting, mentorship, and coming in 2027, our innovative Gap Year Basketball Academy designed to assist both young men and women reach their full potential both on and off the court. I'm incredibly excited to announce that the CKA Save Project is now partnering with the Cascade Sports Network. This partnership will allow us the opportunity to amplify our message and reach even more student athletes through the Odd Coaches podcast and other exciting initiatives. Join the CKA Save Project and the Cascade Sports Network as we empower the next generation of student athletes. Visit CKA on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org to learn more. Let's work together to find the balance and help unlock your potential. Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast in segment 2. In my opinion, the story of the tournament is that NIL is in the news. And let's talk about Indiana. So this week, Darian DeVries left West Virginia to be the head coach at Indiana. And one of the things that we talked about during football season that came up is that Indiana has money because they've never used their basketball money. And they've been, one of the best basketball teams for decades. And Indiana basketball is one of the top jobs in the sport. And now you need $5 million to build a roster at a program like Indiana. So, Will, any thoughts on Indiana taking a swing at West Virginia's coach to take them to the promised land with a proposed $5 million NIL roster?
Oh, I mean, that's the way you win. I don't have time to bring in an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old and develop him and make him grow and redshirt here. And he may even stay and get I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that, man. You gave me $5 million. I can get you a roster of guys who will play, who are tough, who are already hard nosed in terms of college. Let's go win and the truth is, Indiana basketball lore no longer attracts anybody. The history no longer says, oh, come on, be a Hoosier. All that stuff is done. Now these kids all want to know is, how much can you pay me? What can you do for me? So if you can be upfront with yourself and say, look, we got $5 million, man. We can find some good players here in Indiana, and we don't have to cut all that BS stuff. We don't. If you and like Rick Pitino said himself, he said, man, we're not even recruiting high school kids right now. He's like, there's no point.
There's no point.
Yeah, because I think you said, Coach, even earlier when we talk about it, when you're 22, 21, it's all about the money. It's all about, okay, well, I want to win and I can get paid. When you're younger, it's like, oh man, well, I dropped 30 in the state championship. And I dropped, I had 15 rebounds, and you think you're the hot shit, and you're not. So I totally agree. That's the way you go. If you're not a team like North Carolina or obviously Auburn right now, or if you're not attracting talent just off the name, then you better get your budget ready to go because you're going to pay for some players.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually brought that point up. In the book, I talk about the importance of understanding transactional relationships. One of the issues we have in education is an over-reliance on personal relationships. So in elementary school, you love your teacher, you this, that, and the other. In middle school, it's about who you like and who you're going to perform for. In high school, so everything is kind of catered to the client. But in the workforce, man, do your job. Here's what I'm needing you to do. We're not going to the bar afterwards. It's a transactional relationship. We're not a family. Stop telling me we're a family. Because as soon as you have the opportunity to cut my job or if I have the opportunity to make some more money, it's a transaction. Hey, I have done my contractually obligated situation here, and I'm going to move on to something else. So this is what college has become, is a highly transactional situation. And speaking of transaction, let's go to our local school here. We're based out of Maryland, the University of Maryland. So SMU is hiring Maryland's athletic director, Damon Evans. Now, Damon replaces Rick Hart, who helped guide SMU into the ACC. And quite frankly, SMU is a gold mine. And what I mean by that is there's rich and then there's wealthy. And one of my mentors used to work at SMU, and I had a chance to watch SMU's basketball team play last year at East Carolina. And now that they're in the ACC, they've got Texas level resources in the ACC, and the ACC doesn't have that kind of resource coming in, and they're suing each other and settling and so forth. So, football wise, SMU has an opportunity in front of it. Basketball wise, the ACC only got 4 teams in this year, folks, and it really should have only been 3, but we'll let that go. So if everything lines up, you're going to hear about SMU in football and basketball for years to come. Will, any thoughts about Damon Evans leaving Maryland and the stress of the Big Ten to go to the ACC?
Mike King could probably tell us better, but Damon Evans was one of the guys who was part of the transition to get Maryland to the Big Ten, right? I believe so.
He was with Kevin Anderson, and
Yes.
somebody better tap Locks on the shoulder because
Yes.
you should spruce up your resume, as we used to say.
Get that going. But I think that Damon Evans knows where the money is going. And if it was me, you have this understanding of this transition, but one of the biggest things that he could do is broker some sort of relationship between the SEC to absorb the ACC teams. Now, you know what I'm saying? SEC is a moneymaker. Who would you bring in from the ACC that makes money, but doesn't really regionally change anything for you? SMU doesn't change anything for you. Florida State doesn't change anything for you. Clemson doesn't change for you. If you want some schools to keep the GPA up, UNC don't change nothing for you. Duke don't change nothing for you.
And also, Will, he's the college football playoff selection committee chair. I mean, not chair, but he's on the selection committee. And that worked out pretty well for UNC. So
So I mean, if he's one of those guys that can strengthen the ACC and get them back to where they were, man, I'm with it. But if they're not, then it's kind of like, what are we doing here? So.
All right. So there are some other tournaments going on, and joining us for the rest of the show, thank goodness, my main man, Coach Alfred Johnson. So, Will, have you watched any of the other tournaments? The NIT, the CBI, the College Basketball Crown hasn't taken place yet, but have you watched any of the other tournaments, sir?
I have not. I think they have to change the name of the NIT because right now it has such a bad name, such a bad image. Like it just speaks to like poo-poo and losers. Like it's just not a good brand anymore right now. But back in the day when I was younger, man, they had some really good games in NIT, man. They would start getting going. Unfortunately, some of those teams were St. John's and the NIT getting going. So, but I haven't watched any. It's unfortunate because that's still good basketball going on right now. But yeah, they're being absorbed because of the women's bracket now. Remember, normally NIT would get some love during the week because nobody watching the college women's basketball. Now women's college basketball is blowing up, putting the NIT on the back burner. Nobody watching that no more.
I gotta find it on the air. Coach Johnson, have you watched any of the secondary tournaments other than the NCAA? Have you checked it out?
I'm like Will. I have not. I've kept up with them, but I again go back to when my kid led Villanova to the NIT championship. It was a big thing back then when Villanova won it. And like you said, back then, when you got in it, it was something worth playing for. Now, you're right. It's like people are turning it down. They'd rather just not play at all than go to the NIT. That's not a good sign.
That sounds like the college basketball crown because I shared with Will who was in the college basketball crown, and some of those teams, Georgetown, you're in the postseason?
Yes.
It's like, what?
Villanova's in there too, and they fired the coach.
I mean,
Yep.
I'll take your trip to Vegas. Don't get it wrong. But when you see the list of teams,
Yes.
you're like, this is like the winter break tournament or something. But
Those are coaches don't want to go home. They are the season over. They're like, man, they try to go on my man. Let's get another tournament going.
all right. So fans, in segment 3, we're going to see if our Final Fours are still in order, and we're going to get a little bit of a breakdown from Coach Johnson on what you should look for in these Elite Eight games that are forthcoming. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Keith Adams, and for years, I've witnessed the struggles student athletes face on how to truly balance the demands of academics and athletics. It's a question that I have dedicated my life to answering. That's why I wrote Finding the Balance, my personal journey to academic and athletic success. It's more than just a book. It is my personal journey, and it is filled with hard-earned lessons from decades as a coach, educator, and now president of the CKA SAFE Project. Inside, you will find practical advice, real-life stories, and a clear roadmap to help student athletes, coaches, and parents navigate the complex world of balancing sports and education. And now I am thrilled to bring this message to a wider audience as a proud member of the Cascade Sports Network. We're partnering to amplify these crucial conversations about student athlete success. I believe every student athlete deserves the opportunity to reach their full potential, both on and off the court and the field. You can purchase your copy directly from our website at www.ckasafeproject.org. Join me and the Cascade Sports Network as we work together to help every student athlete succeed. Well, welcome back to Odd Coaches Podcast in segment 3. We're going to start with Will. Will, how's your Final Four looking, man? What do you think? Any updated Final Four predictions or thoughts?
Nothing good for me. I was too biased this year. I was so excited about St. John's. I put him in the finals, and my bracket is over. But I was so excited about the season. I wasn't even thinking about the other stuff. But everything else is looking good. Maryland is keeping it tight right now. We'll see. They're down 1, but I need them to win. And I think Michigan State, man, I think they got to keep going what they got. I think they play later tonight. So things are still good, except for St. John's winning everything. Everything else is pretty steady. So I'll maybe next year I'll be less biased.
Coach Johnson, how is your Final Four predictions looking? What do you think?
Well, I don't actually pick a Final Four. I've actually never done that. I'll follow teams. Like Will, I was shocked at St. John's. I had St. John's advancing further because I love the way they defend, but their shooting yesterday was atrocious. It was unbelievable. I think Clark Kellogg mentioned that between the two teams yesterday, they had about 90 misses. That is you can't get that many misses in a schoolyard contest.
Right.
So, but the teams that I do have advanced are advancing. Duke, Houston. I really like those two. And my heartstring is pulling for Calvin Sampson to win a national championship.
Yes. All right, for me, my 4 is still there. Now, I did have Arkansas beating St. John's, and the reason being was it was kind of an easy pick for me as a coach because Calipari plays better when he's an underdog. And you saw that at Kentucky. When he was the favorite, man, I'm out first round to some of the most random schools you'll ever see. But, when he's got that chip on his shoulder and playing from underneath, so to speak, I did have that. But my 4, I'm a 1 seed guy this year because talent, as Will and I talked about in the first segment, when you've got elite talent, it covers up a lot of stuff.
It
And
does.
Duke's got elite talent. Okay.
Yes, they do.
Houston defends better than your talent, so they're going to have a shot. Florida is not going to miss, but so much, and they're so fast. And then Auburn, although I am not the biggest Bruce Pearl fan, I'm looking at those two cats in the backcourt, and I can't. There's no stopping that if that's on. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Looking forward to some of the Sweet 16 games, but that was my Final Four was Duke, Houston, Auburn, and Florida. And I have Houston cutting down the nets in San Antonio. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. And speaking of San Antonio, I want to give you guys a preview. The Odd Coaches podcast will be on site in San Antonio. We'll be doing research studies on student athletes and coaches. We'll be prepping for the post grad, so I'll be looking at a lot of vendors, and then I'll be getting on a Zoom with Coach Johnson to share what the vendors are saying, and he's going to give me some advice on some of these products. And I get to hang out with our favorite administrator, Robert. So looking forward to that. Coach Johnson, anything you think our fans should look for as they watch this coming week, the Sweet 16 games and Elite Eight, from your coaching perspective, what do you want them to key on as they watch this weekend?
Well, I go back to what you talked about when you talking about the elite talent. Who's playing well together as a group in terms of chemistry? Which group is avoiding injuries? That is huge at this point, especially if one of your key players get injured. The fact that Cooper Flagg came back as strong as he did, again, favors Duke. Duke is just so good as a team. They really are. Their game was probably the only game that was not in question score-wise. A lot of these games came down to, the final 4 or 5 minutes, things of this nature, 3 minutes. Their game was over relatively early.
Yeah.
The only thing missing from that, baby, was the final score. That was it.
All right, Cotton Man, you are somebody who's done a long postseason run. Anything from a player perspective that you would like to give advice for, or anything you want fans to take a look at?
I would say just, trust your work. Trust your process, man. The things that you've been doing since, September, and the cuts that you've been making every day, and the right, banana cut that you got to make, and the jab or the screen that you got to make, trust it, because the better teams right now, they're moving in autopilot. They shouldn't even thinking about what they're doing. And the teams that are losing are the ones that are thinking a little bit and mess up a little bit. Happens usually on time of score, coach, at the end of the game. But the ones that know what's going on, they trust on the muscle memory, and they just do what they got to do. So just look like Coach Johnson said, Duke is looking good, but if you see them, they look so fluid. They look like what they know doing every play. They know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Oh, you came down and hit 3. I know exactly what I'm running. I'm doing this. So I know I got 2 options, things like that. So it's become to a point now where it's like you're just fighting this demon that constantly knows what he's doing, and it never stops. So just watch on that. Yeah, I've been loving it. So like you guys said, Duke looks the best right now. I would even say Florida. I mean, Florida went down, took a hard punch late in the second half, kept trusted, went back to the board. What they were doing, they came back and won. So yeah, teams like that, man, those are the ones that are really going to start to excel, and the cream rises to the top, baby. So we'll see as it gets better as well.
One of Randy Savage's best promos. All right, so fans, this coming weekend, if you are local to the District, Maryland, and Virginia, the DMV, the Odd Coaches podcast will be hosting an in-person fundraiser, an Elite Eight watch party at the Green Turtle in Burtonsville, Maryland. Suggested donations, $50 to assist us in all of the different things we're doing. So we hope to see you out there, and we will have one special guest for me. Big Ryan's coming up from Virginia, so it'll be good to see the big fellow. And we're also closing in on episode 600. This is episode 599 of the Odd Coaches podcast. And when we started this during COVID, My wife, had mentioned something, and more importantly, AJ Francis talked to Mike Francis, my original co-host, and said you guys should do a podcast, and something I've wanted to do anyway. So I'm very happy to have that. And with that, the podcast has allowed me the opportunity to reconnect with a lot of folks, and I'm glad Coach Johnson is here so I can give him his flowers. Coach Johnson and I are coaching contemporaries, and a lot of times when we were out on the road recruiting, we didn't talk basketball. We talked everything but basketball. And outside the show, Coach Johnson's working on his doctorate, and I love being a small part of his journey as he creates new knowledge and births new knowledge. So, Coach, any thoughts about something that I wrapped you into by happenstance? Said, man, I think you do a good job on this. How you feel about we're closed in on 600?
I think that's wonderful, and I think it talks about the success of the longevity. This is something that you can bring young coaches into, young players into, get their take on things, but also it teaches them about history. John Chaney used to always talk about, guys want to go to the table to eat, but they don't give thanks to who set the table. So again, we got to give thanks. And again, thank you for you and all your previous hosts before us to get this ball rolling.
All right, very happy to have that. And I get to talk basketball with one of my favorite players every week, and it's so cool. You just don't understand what family is to us. And Will played for me for 2 years, and Will was the guy who had the pulse of the team. And there's story after story of Will checking in the morning because, yes, young student athletes, my players had to sign in like they were going to work. And if you didn't sign in on time, everybody in the program ran. And you didn't come late very often because the kid would do things to you in the locker room. But we can't talk about that. Statute of limitations over. So, Will, any thoughts about being able to talk basketball with your high school coach every week for the last 3 years? How you feeling about that, man?
It's been great how all the lessons that you taught me are still like holding true. Even things that time and score, certain things like that. So it just really, and what really funny is like all the things that are happening now that we were already doing. Like
Yes.
what were they doing? We were doing like they had that podcast with Rick Pitino on, and they were like, oh yeah, I don't. She's like, when you're in season, he's like, I'm not running sprints, I'm not running suicides. And everyone was like, yeah, that makes sense. He's a genius. Oh my God. And I'm like, man, Coach Adams been doing that in 2003. Like,
end of the season, man, it's
yeah.
a 45, 50-minute practice, and we're out the door, man. Little time and score, a little shooting here.
Yeah. But it's also great just to get like now, obviously now we're obviously older. We have our own like our views and things that we've seen. And the perspective has just been great. I've learned from everybody. I mean, I've learned from, Coach Johnson, obviously Coach Adams, Mike, even George, and obviously, even Fowler when he feels like talking. When I guess the 49ers, when they're good, Fowler will tell you all kinds of stuff about basketball that you don't really talk about. But it was just really good, really great to know. And I've loved it, and I've loved the fellowship, man. So let's keep it going.
Yes, and speaking of that, shout out to our favorite administrator, Robert Abney, who is our rules interpreter. So he keeps the group chat calm. Go ahead, Coach.
One of the things I want to add, one of the things I love about this is that you keep things in front of people. And what I mean by that is, I remember when I first started coaching, people always talked about Dean Smith and the four corners, right? Well, Dean Smith didn't invent the four corners. Coach John McClendon did. And for those who don't know, and I'm biased, I still think he's the greatest college basketball coach of all time, because he did it during a time where blacks were not allowed to coach at white institutions or have white players. He's the first coach to win 3 consecutive national championships, even though it was NAIA, it was a national championship. He's the first black coach to ever coach a pro team. Again, the ABA, but it was the Pittsburgh Pipers. Coached in the Olympics. You know, I heard someone talk about the difference between a fast break and a running game. And I always ask my players this. Do they know the difference? Most of them don't. Well, the fast break is during opportune moments. All right? Steal, rebound, things of this nature. Running game is a commitment to running the ball every moment. That's what Coach McClendon did. He invented the running game. So again, I love the fact that you talk about HBCUs, some of the greatest coaches. With that said, I was also happy to see Larry Vickers from Norfolk State get the women's job at Auburn. That don't happen a lot, and congratulations to that young man.
Yes, indeed. All right, so on behalf of our Cavalcade of Stars, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches podcast. Shout out to the Cascade Sports Network and our friends in Kansas City. And we'll see you on the sidelines. Until next time, take care.
The Odd Coaches podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills, to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress, to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org. We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach FRANCHIZE. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches Podcast.